12 a.m. over here, and I'm gonna take that W even if I have to stay awake all night.
Oh, correct answer.
God always has me do this.
Great. Yeah, look at that. You're up 2-1.
Just how to learn. I'm gonna bring in the gold.
Yeah, this is a
I
good
knew
one.
you're gonna bring it home strong.
My acting career ended at like age 12.
Mom, Dad, love you, but you know. What's up, you guys? Have you missed us? Have you missed an episode of The Young Guns? Well, we've not been sitting on our hands. We've been hard at work at the next design challenge. So Young Guns, here's your mission. I want you to pick an airline and create a sub-brand that is either a premier, VIP, or first business class sub-brand, whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm going to give you the criteria in which we will be looking at this particular challenge. After you've picked the airline that you want to work with, we're going to need to design a logo, and this could be a word mark, a combination mark, or anything that you can think of. It needs to live with the parent brand. So keep this in mind, because we're not rebranding the airline, we're just helping them to define and create a VIP class. The perfect example is JetBlue and Mint. So first, before you do anything, look up that relationship, look at how JetBlue is branded and how Mint is branded, because it's, I think, a premium example of how you do this. Once you finish designing your logo, you're going to need to design at minimum 3 applications. This could be the cabin menu, luggage tags, ticket patterns, packaging, banners, billboards, uniform, stationery, signage, labels, or anything you can imagine as part of a luxury airline. The judging criteria will be based on these following points. 1. Appropriateness. Does it fit within the existing brand umbrella? Does it feel on brand? 2. Flexibility. Does the ID system lend itself well to many applications? Does it feel unified but offer up enough variety? Does it work at all sizes? Longevity. Does it feel dated? Will it need to be updated in a few years, or will it last? Luxury. Does it feel premium and different from standard class? Applications. Do the mock-ups feel high-end, polished, and refined? Does this feel like something that could exist in the real world? And did you go the extra mile? Thanks for flying Airdo. You guys know what you need to do. Buckle up, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, and get designing. So this is midpoint check-in, so...
I'm excited to see what they pan out with, and who knows, maybe there's going to be a surprise.
The airline I picked was out of these 3. But Vistara clearly stated the goal is to basically give a personalized and a much unique experience of air travel. So I picked the name Vistara Signature because signature actually means unique identity mark, right? Vistara Signature is something that they really want to do, which kind of distinguishes their product from like other airlines. Till now, I've done only this research and come up with the name.
What does Vistara mean?
Vistara means infinite expanse. Their tagline is fly the new feeling. They want to give the feeling of clear skies and expansive sky. That's why their name is Vistara.
Okay. What you're coming up with is pretty generic, I have to tell you, because it could be Southwest signature. It could be anything signature. It doesn't really feel like it's married to Vistara, because if you take the word Vistara and you break it down to 2 parts, there's the word Vista, which I think has some positive meanings to it, and the star, the sun, the constellation, something galactic. When it comes to naming, if you were literally to present this to me and I just paid you $1 million to come up with a name and you came up with signature, you would start to, you'd better be a really smooth talker at that point, right? When we came up with the name for Emirates, we came up with Emerald. So you know how it plays on Emirates and Emerald and precious stones. You know, you could take any name and swap that out. So I don't think you're off to a great start, Arun.
Okay. Yeah, one problem I'm having is trying to decide the visual direction, because Vistara already has a high-end branding. This is the logo, current logo. And this is the current branding. It's already got a turquoise kind of purple color with a bit of gold. So I felt they're already trying to be very high-end, especially with the pictures that they're showing. So I was kind of having trouble with coming with a visual language which will distinguish their next product, which is the premium seating product.
You want life to be really easy, huh? Is that what you're telling me?
No,
it's supposed to be difficult, Arun. That's why these guys get paid millions of dollars to do this, right?
Okay.
So you want it to be difficult. So it's like, this is premium, but you can always make it more premium. Make it distinguished. What you want to do is look at the elements that make up Vistara, the interlocking symbol, the expanding universe symbol, right? It's kind of a neat mark. I don't love their word mark, but that's okay. And then you say it's kind of Vistara, build off that. You're not going to come into any company and say, you know, there's 35 years of legacy and history and equity, but I came up with this new thing that has nothing to do with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're going. It's because you guys need to learn how to work with an existing company and build off that. This is where you got to go deep into their program. What have you done with your time, young man? Commuting to work? No, I'm just kidding. Right? You're given this opportunity. I'm giving you a 30-minute window coaching time. You've used up 5 of it for any real feedback, and that's all I got. So this is where you should have dug deep. You're like, okay, I looked at constellations, I look at stars and different ways of representing stars.
So I actually tried to go in the second direction, which was trying to come up with another Sanskrit word which kind of plays off of Vistara. But it was, I don't know, I looked at their website and most of their naming convention. So I kind of felt they don't really want to expand on it anymore.
Who cares? Come up with something interesting, because at the end of the day, you didn't really get hired by them, but you want to be able to show this somewhere. It's like, you know, I took on this project. I really want to try to reimagine it. Here's the thinking, the concept, and isn't this cool? And they're like, wow, I wish they did that instead of doing what they did. Mark, help us out.
Just something to help the audience as they're watching through these things. How would you break down those maybe few steps that Arun could have followed?
Good, Mark. Take me back to Earth before, because I'm in the moon right now. I am. Okay, the first thing that Arun, you want to do is you want to research as much as you can about Vistara. Who's the founder? What's the history? What's the evolution of the brand? You have to dive into that. And then in there sometimes is a piece of information. You did do the one aspect, but I wish you showed me, is you did some research from the company that created the brand. Did you go on their social media channels? Did you see how they talk? Did you look at their regular class and the premium class? What's the tone and the vibe? What kind of images are they sharing on social media? And when you're coming up with ideas for names, I want to see 100 names on your thing.
I think that's what I did wrong. I started looking for the name directly instead of trying to describe what Vistara signature, like what I call right now.
You tried to come to the solution without understanding the problem. That's a classic no-no. It's almost like you never watched our channel. Do you know what I mean? It's like the answers come from something. As designers, we just want to start making stuff. Like you're just making names, making logos, making scratches on a piece of paper. Naming is a very difficult thing. You know, for us, we were thinking Emirates. What does that mean? I was just trying to dive around and we looked at their colors and everything. It's like the best of the best. So it's like, is it like diamond class? But emerald class, there we go. There's some connective tissue there that we can tie back. Next, you would build a user persona. You'd think like, okay, who's going to visit this? Have you profiled the customers and the customer type? Have you done personas and have you done any of that stuff? Did you build up a mood board? What are the perks that you get as part of the premium class? You can go to the airport. You can sit there and you can talk to the sales clerk, or you can just call them up and it's like, you know what? I'm really interested in premium class. Can you talk me through what this is about? So let's refine your process. If you really watched an Adobe live stream, can you just follow the process that we came up with? Revisit that video, please.
Okay.
We tried to literally explain to you from beginning to end how we did this thing. And you're like, no, I know better, Chris. I know better. Hey, don't worry about this. Like, dang, dude, come on.
Okay.
Are you butthurt, dude? Are you okay?
Why would I be butthurt? I mean, I wanted to go first because of the same reason, because I wanted to like see where was my shortcomings, but I didn't want to go long in the process and then realize I've done nothing.
Yeah,
So,
that's what a lot of people do. When I've taught for many years, what they do is like, I don't want to spend any time doing anything because I know I'm wrong anyway. So this is what I'll do. That's a strategy.
Okay.
It's a bad strategy, but it's a strategy.
Okay.
All right, I gotta go.
I selected Swiss Airlines, and why I picked it was I remember a few years back when I was in London, one of my flights was Swiss Airlines, and I flew economy, of course, but it was really fancy. So I just have this memory of the white cabin. I've never seen leather seats on an economy class before. It looked very much like a Mies van der Rohe chair or something. That stuck with me, so that's why I picked Swiss Air. Mr. Holger Hattie here. They rebranded relatively recently. he talks about how they want to, convey genuine close to our customers, and they want to be devoted to delivering optimum products and great quality service. Based on that, I went ahead and brand attributes exercise from core. It was fun to, put all the words out there and have like a framework to fill the keywords out there instead of just jotting everything that goes on in your head on a piece of paper. After I've done that, I selected the words I wanted to use in my stylescapes, and the name came up basically based on those words. I struggled really hard to pick a name. I really like the way it sounds, which I think is important. I'm sure a lot of research should go into this if you're actually picking a brand name and, focus groups and all that. But I think it's easy to pronounce. It's memorable. It has this, snappy crimson. It sounds hot. Crimson is also a very royal color based on its history. And, the red is a very rich red. And then I went ahead and designed the first mood board. The first approach I decided to go was like minimum, modern, and refined. Those are the keywords I picked for the stylescape. I really wanted to reflect the same feeling I got when I was in that plane. I wanted to capture the white cabin with the very dark leather and all that. The colors I picked, obviously the primary color is crimson.
That'd be hilarious if you're like crimson coming to you in verde green.
The accent color, I picked blue here, but after I was done, I didn't really like the way it looked very much. But I really wanted an accent color because I think accent colors, in applications would be very important. I tried with 2 other colors. It's the same exact stylescape, but with 2 different shades of green. But I think the greens look better than the blue does. I think the blue looks too tech startup kind of thing. The other stylescape, I decided to experiment with a direction that resonated with me at the beginning. In the research phase, I looked a lot at brands like hotels, fashion brands, and, like Rolex, all that stuff. They all follow more or less a very similar language for luxury or to communicate luxury. So I was trying my take on this version of luxury.
Okay, here's my initial feedback. I think you did a lot of good work and you've made a lot of progress. And I'm excited to talk to you about this because you've put in the work so that we can respond to certain things, okay? And I like how honest you are. Obviously, this is not how you would talk to a client. But I just like that there's no pretense from you. It's like, hey, I started getting into naming and then I realized I'm not very good at this and this is really difficult. So let's move on because if you hired a naming firm, they would come up with the name and then you could get going on the design. So I think Crimson is a fine name. I like it because it reminds me of the things that I associate with the Swiss, the red, the square, grids, crosses, and things like that. I was trying to find the story. There's this book I have here. It's called The Secret Lives of Colors. And unfortunately for you, there's no secret story of crimson.
How you get crimson is basically there's this insect. Its name, I think, is kermis or something. Like something that's, crimson is derived from that. And they crush the small female insect and it has this very rich red color. So that's where the name comes from. So these are the 6, variations. So I wanted to use something along the lines of the brand attributes I came up with. So it's the cross on the, Swiss flag and the Swiss Airlines logo. Could look like a star. Those 2, I'd replace the eye with also with a star. And this one, I just thought it looked really very much like the Mont Blanc.
Like almost exactly like it?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. So stay here. There's a difference between rebranding the parent company and doing a sub-brand. And what you're doing is you're doing a sub-brand. You know what I mean when I say that?
Yes.
So you can't use the exact same configuration because then there's going to be a lot of confusion. This is going to seem like it doesn't belong underneath. So let's go to the page where you have Swiss Air. I just want to clarify for somebody who's watching what's going on here. So that lockup, these letters are hard to distinguish because there's not a lot of things that you can pick apart. The W and the I for a lot of sans serif typefaces is going to be very, very similar. So the only thing you have to work with is the S. I appreciate Swiss culture and Swiss design in particular. I get this sense of ethos, this sense for order, the elimination of the ornate, and there seems to be a very methodical process. Some people would criticize Swiss design as being a little cold, but I love it. I love it because it's free of decoration, okay? I personally like the red and the blue. This is subjective. I think you're going to have a little bit more freedom to work with this. I would probably pick a blue that's got a little bit more chroma to it because it's very close to black. Another thing I would encourage you to do here is to have maybe some shades of gray. I don't know if it's a warm gray or a cool gray, but a couple of shades of gray so that you have a little bit more flexibility when you're building out the system. So the logo explorations here, I'm going to eliminate, of course, the serif typeface because it just somehow feels off to me. The lower left corner, the crimson with the Mont Blanc star, looks really balanced. It's a handsome typeface, but we have to work on that symbol a little bit. And we just want to say this is like the premier class, right? This is first class, executive class, whatever you want to call it. So you could call it Crimson by Swiss Air or something. I'm not quite sure how you're going to work on this lockup, okay? Because remember, this is a sub-brand. The one that seems the most resolved to me is the upper right corner that has the fewest conflicts, where there's a little sparkle, a little shine. It does feel retro to me, which I don't also associate with Swiss culture. So I think somewhere between the upper right and the lower left is where you need to be.
Okay.
Okay? And I think I like the weight of the bolder typeface versus the thinner typeface. And they're two different typefaces, or they're just different weights. I can't tell. Okay? And I think not trying to turn this into a naming episode or a naming class, because I'm not an expert at that either. I think Crimson, for all the reasons why you said it works for me too. It has a hard K sound. It's easy to pronounce. It's the right number of letters. So you got 7 letters to work with. It's not too long or too short. And I'd love for you to play around with that. Now, for the next round, when we're going to present the final design, I would encourage you to look at some more modern Swiss design and see where Swiss culture has gone. And I think you're going to see a little bit more excitement and energy and not what you typically associate with stereotypical Swiss design.
Not the Swiss design I studied in architecture school.
It still feels like Swiss design. So that's them like getting loose and wild, right? But start to dig around and see what else you can see. Maybe it's you taking what we associate with classic Swiss design and pushing it 10 or 15%. What I feel about Swiss culture is a little bit more understated. It's a little less flashy and showing off. So it's like a refined luxury in its simplicity. Every piece of signage, every public wayfinding thing is incredibly designed.
Mm-hmm.
So from the airport throughout the whole city to the hotels and the hospitals, everything is really beautifully designed. So I think we want to make sure that it feels in keeping with that tradition and history. All right. Did you find this to be harder or easier? How did reality meet your expectations?
The stylescaping process is actually very entertaining to me. Like I've been doing it for a while now.
It's fun to do.
Yeah, it's very fun to do so. So I always enjoy that, and it's helped me a lot. Like whenever I'd start a branding project before I did any stylescapes, I would be extremely lost. So now it's much easier to get into the headspace and think about the brand very much and feel the brand, because you see it and you use elements that aren't necessarily graphical. So you could use images of people or architecture and all that. So it really helps you get in the headspace. It was a nice exercise. I really enjoyed it.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. Thanks for playing along, and we will see you on the next episode.
Okay, bye-bye.
First of all, the brand I chose is American Airlines. This is the stylescape that I put together. American Airlines and JetBlue, which the brief is based off of, they're selling their first class tickets at like a similar price point. Of course, JetBlue has their Mint brand set up, and they have a lot more fleshed out. And I saw an opportunity there for something to be made out of American Airlines first class service. So that's why I chose this. And the name I came up with it is Ace. Firstly, it's like an adjective which is just described as like for a premium, like top quality, like an ace pilot, for example. So that can be help me out here.
You got it. I'm not gonna help you out, but you
help
got
me out here. An ace pilot. So I'm trying to explain like my reason where I got the name from, but I'm choking here. The keywords I chose for this are modern, premium, and adventurous. I wanted to try to create something that looked premium and luxury, if you will, but still be modern and fit within the American Airlines brand. So it's not something completely new. I played a little bit with the logo here, which is a play off that pattern that they have on the back of the plane. So I wanted to make a connection there, so it doesn't feel too foreign from what they already have. And I knew I could take that out and extrapolate it and use it as a pattern here. And so I'm going for that like bold, geometric, very avant-garde kind of style here with the overall look and brand. Don't really know what else to say. It's hard for me.
Are you done?
I guess so.
Okay, let's talk about this a little bit.
Sure.
I think American Airlines is a great airline for you to work off of because they have very recognizable identity system and pretty clear branding. And if you want to compete with Mint, that's a pretty high bar, and I think that's a worthwhile pursuit for you to do. I like the simplicity and some of the overlapping colors that you've been able to integrate in there, so it feels familiar, yet it's its own thing. I'm wondering in your logo exploration if you can maybe give Ace something a little bit distinctive besides the offset stripes. I don't think you need to do a whole lot to it. It's one flourish. It's not to add 35 flourishes. It could be as simple as incorporating some of the colors into the letter A, or maybe as the original American Airlines. When I say original, I mean the new rebrand for American Airlines. It looks like a piece of paper that's curled over itself to form the wings of an eagle, but also the head of an eagle. And the original, which is a classic, and there's some debate about whether or not they should have changed anything, was designed by Massimo Vignelli, which was brilliant and beautiful. But for whatever reason, they decided to move and go a different way. Okay. So you can play off the stripes because of American, or you can also maybe do something with the eagle, the beak, the wing, the folded over aspect. So it has a dimensional quality. I think it needs one flourish. Like you could take the crossbar of the A and perhaps try to mimic something so that it feels connected. I think Ace sounds pretty good. At first, there's some association that somebody might get with Ace hardware, and that's something that you may need to work out, okay? To see that whatever you do, it feels really different and distinguished from that. It feels a little like gung-ho and cavalier, like the ace pilot from American Airlines. So it has a little bit of that to it, where that may be something that doesn't wear well in the long run, something for you to think about, okay? So picking neutral to neutral to positive words might be good. This is definitely very far on the, woo, we're the best, ace, okay? And the ace is the best card you can have in a card game. Like you said, ace pilot, ace, the number one crack shot, top position. Yeah,
there's a lot of kind of like
it's loaded,
positive kind of thing.
Right?
It's loaded words.
It's a loaded word. It has a lot of meaning, and so
that's funny because I thought it was a good choice because of that. But you're making me rethink that right now.
Well, I think I'm with you. I mean, I think at the beginning there's a lot of positive things, but it also reminds me of like some Yahoo cowboy. It's like, dude, I got this. I'm ace. It's aces, baby. Okay. Maybe I'm just reading into this, but at the end of the day, I want you to focus on branding system and to decide pretty quickly what word you're going to use. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to be naming experts right now. We just need something to work with. So I like the logic. I like the reasoning. I like the stylescape that you put together. And I can see this moving in a very positive direction. You may want to incorporate more images into your stylescape so that you really know where this is going. Okay. Because besides the big stripes and the map and overlapping colors, what else is there to the system?
I just didn't want to feel like too foreign, like too far of a stretch from the original brand.
When I say color, I just mean different shades of things so that it's not all red or blue. I also like that in the red and the blue, it seems like it's very jeweled or like plexiglass. So there's different shades of red and blue. I would probably include that in your color palette so that there's the primary red, blue, and dark blue. And then there's also your secondary shades of red.
Yes, that's a good idea. I was not planning on doing that.
Yeah, because you'll soon find, because I've done this before, you're going to have a hard time designing other things.
I actually do have another one to show you, another direction.
Okay.
Here's the second one. So for this direction, I wanted it to be a lot less explorative and simpler and more corporate to give like that luxury feel. So the keywords I choose is exclusive, luxury, comfortable. Choose a serif font this time to give that more high-class feel. And I introduced a gold color here again to do the same thing. This star pattern I incorporated. American doesn't use it as part of their branding, but I thought that would be something cool to incorporate. I chose this red color, which is a little subdued, not as bright as the original American Airlines red. I thought it just fitted better with the dark blue and the subdued color palette and the gold. So everything clashes a little bit less. I can't explain my work very well. It's something I got to work on. Yeah, I don't know what else to say here.
Okay. Well, you know what's really interesting about the second stylescape? Though it may not seem like the obvious choice, it's interesting how you're able to kind of find the common thread between these and how differently we perceive the brand just because you changed the amount of saturation or chroma in the colors. Like the red, you shifted the hue, the blue, you pulled out the saturation, you brought the value down. And so you can see here, guys, that this, just because you say red and blue, it can mean 1,000 different things. And this is more of a muted navy blue or maybe a denim blue that I'm seeing. And you're right, it kind of ages up instead of aging down, right? So we're getting to be older now. And I think throwing in the gold too and just hints of it, or that copper color, whatever color we're calling that, I think that adds a very different feel to it. I also like that you're exploring different elements of the patriotism and what makes America, which is stars and stripes, beyond the red and blue. However, the way you presented this would make most people turn off by it. It's like, yeah, so now it's really corporate and old.
You're
guys.
a lot better with your words
do?
than I am. So I definitely have to work on that.
That's okay. I have a few years on you, just a few though. So when you present it, it's a reflection of how you may or may not feel about it personally. So I'm going to save you a lot of grief and trouble and say, don't pursue this direction, pursue the first one, okay? And it's nice for you to show me two things and explore the Garamond. I think it's going to be helpful to the community that's watching to see how a designer approaches this. And there's lots of viable options here. So let's close this down. Let's go back to the other one. Why I like this and why I think the American Airlines brand is successful is because it feels American, it's modern, and it's got its own distinct vibe to it. I think you have to be careful about going too far on stars and stripes, right?
Exactly.
Where it feels like you literally took the flag and wrapped it around every single thing. So I like this shade of blue. I like the intensity of the red. I like the variation in red and the blues in the stripes behind the guy. I think those are very good things. This is really punchy, and it's even brighter and more saturated than the original American Airlines, which I think is good because this is a sub-brand, so we want to make it feel fresh, right?
Exactly. The reason I created the second stylescape is because I thought this was a little too out there. It's too punchy, I think.
Why do you say that?
I don't know.
I'll tell you something. If you want to go older, you can. But more often than not, in terms of marketing, they said you have to aim 10 to 15 years younger than what you want to hit. So the interesting thing that Toyota has found when they launched their sub-brand or sister brand, Scion, is that they were thinking that this is going to be for teenagers. Then you see old people driving. It's like, what is going on? I don't see anything here that wouldn't appeal to me or people in my demographic.
Right. Okay. Yes. I mean, one thing I was exploring is when I was going through American Airlines site and just seeing like what they have in place already. They have I think it's called like the Advantage program, which they spell with 2 capital A's, like American Airlines.
Yes.
So I play with having Ace like that for a little bit.
That would be nice.
You would like that because it doesn't quite look right when it's spelled out.
It doesn't matter.
I would have to finesse it, but
No, because if you did 2 A's, because American Advantage, right?
Mhm.
Advantage, then they can own that word and it makes it unique. And then it takes the emphasis a little away from the ace.
right. So that's how I
Right.
did have it at first, and I changed it for the worse apparently. But
Not necessary for the worse. You make decisions alone in the dark, kind of,
yeah.
without talking to another human being, and you get lost in the woods. And it happens to all of us, okay?
All right. Well, I'm glad I brought it up.
That's why it's good to, in a case like this, as a check-in, I would have presented me more. I would have started out with, here's names I came up with. Then I did something with Ace and 2 A's and this and that. Because I'm not your client. I'm if anything, I'm your art director or creative director. I'm just going to try to help you. So the more you can share with me in an intelligent way, the more I'm like, oh, that's really good right there. Let's use more of that or dial that in, Sean. All right, Spencer, what you got for me?
They're just really quick and dirty sketches. They're not very clean.
What airline did you pick?
And I picked Lufthansa. At this point, most of what I have is my strategy, my thinking, like my approach to it. I have a few sketches. Lufthansa is German. So I did a bunch of research on prefixes and suffixes, and the word Lufthansa means Luft meaning air and Hansa meaning like a guild or group. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're going to create a premium version of that, maybe replace the word guild with something else, right? I don't have like a conclusive name yet. I'm leaning towards this one, but honestly, I don't know if, where exactly I'm going to go with it. I was thinking about the mark, which is really cool. I did a dissection of it. Here's a few quick actions I can take with the mark. One of my ideas was crop it, zoom in and abstract it, something like that. Would just be this head of it. Another one was just frame it differently, which is kind of a cop-out in my opinion. So you would literally just take this logo and then instead of a circle, you just put a square around it or something like that. So yeah, this option is craft a new mark using the same geometry and angles. So I could just literally take this iconic crane and do my own version of it, maybe pull it from a different angle, a different perspective. That way it still feels connected to the larger brand, but it's different enough, right? So right here, you can kind of have like the same head of that bird, with the two wings around it, that's one. Or here's the head, but it's arced like this, with its chest would be here. And here's some other sketches. You could do like this forward angle, or straight on with both wings symmetrical. What do you think so far?
Okay. Got a lot of things to talk to you about. Weren't you supposed to design a stylescape?
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Okay. Because we tried an experiment, and the experiment is instead of just you going off in the dark and doing it on your own, we're going to insert a midpoint check-in. So you want to go as far as you can to use this as an opportunity for me to give you whatever feedback I can and advice along the way, so that when you finish your final design, it's not going to be, I just get the critique and it's over. You guys have taken very different approaches. Some of you have gone really far, and I was like, this is fantastic. I can work with you. Some people have gone very, not at all. So I was like, okay, you're going to be surprised, and you'll surprise me and you'll surprise yourself. So I think you're somewhere towards the middle, but not as far as I want you to be where you're at. And I think there's a lot of you still working out problems. Ideally, what you would have done or should have done is do an InDesign document, a keynote, and presented your findings, at least bold and big on screen, so that it's like, I see your thought process and you should stage it this way. This is how Paul Rand was able to sell a $100,000 or $1 million logo. He took a lot of time to think through each and every decision he made. He presented it visually. So by the time he got to the conclusion, everybody's like, they're all in, or like, still, we don't like it, but at least we understand the thinking. So I see that you put a lot of thinking into it, but it's like you're not taking your own thinking seriously by just showing me a Word document and talking through it. Next thing is, when you present to somebody, you should not try to sabotage yourself by negging yourself right away. It's like, oh, but that's a cop-out. Well, then don't mention it to me. It's because you're kind of like straddling the fence. Like, maybe he'll like it, maybe he won't. And if that's the case, like, here's some loose ideas. They're not fully baked. What do you think?
Okay.
Okay. So those are presentation tips.
I sincerely misunderstood the purpose of this meeting, because I didn't think it was going to be like a final set and all, like, nice, clean presentation. I thought you were just kind of seeing where I'm at, kind of poking around, like as if you were a teacher walking around the classroom and seeing who's working.
I see what you're saying.
I was expecting you. I expected you to just look at things and say, "Oh, I like that. I like that."
Yeah. Okay. This is the different level, because this is what. How old are you again?
18.
Okay, so you just finished high school?
Yeah.
Okay. When you go to some private art school, you'll see that it's very different, because people don't just come in loose thoughts, and it's like it's too much for me to figure it out. I get it, but let's get you aged up really fast right now. So I'm going to give you the best, most direct information I can, and then you can jump past those people, so that even though you're 18, you can act like a 26-year-old with your experience and your professionalism, okay? At the very beginning, you got to at least start with, this is the brand. I had to ask you, and that shouldn't, like, this is the brand, here's what it looks like, here's what I learned about it. And in creating the sub-brand, this is what I've come upon. I'm still not sure it's going to be between these 2 or 3 things. What do you think? Now, I think your entire approach needs to be rethought a little bit here, because you're paying too much homage, or you're being too deferential to the original brand.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you look at JetBlue,
that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, because JetBlue is the gold standard for like how somebody does this. So there's the original brand, and there's a sub brand. It's called Mint. They create a whole identity system, the whole color palette, and it's like, I don't want you to do something that's so derivative of the original brand. Okay, because I want you to be able to showcase this as, wow, look at this. This is a portfolio piece that I did for an imaginary luxury class for Lufthansa, and this is what it looks like, and this is my creative thinking. Okay,
I think the most powerful part of what you presented was just your naming and understanding the words and where they come from. And naming is a very difficult thing. I think of all the names that you came up with, I don't think you want to do Lufthansa and then Luft something else. I think that's too much. But I like that you're finding the German words like luxury, like Luxus. Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe you can do Lufthansa Luxus class or something. You could just, you got to be able to come up with some words so that you can design a logo for, a word mark.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I think that's the direction you want to go in on. Okay. So you probably should have done a stylescape so that informs the design palette, and then I can react to that. I'm like, oh, I love that. Maybe you got to go down this direction. This is why we have the midpoint check-in. So as much as you can do, as cleanly as you can present it, so that I can give you the best, most laser-focused feedback, so you can walk away like, that's good. Now I know what to do. And here's the last little thing that I can think about. I don't know if we want to play too much on this, but if it's a crane, maybe the sub-brand is like some kind of abstract version of a feather, and that's the way you can tie things together, but I don't know if that's going to look good. That's how you build it. You're not just cropping it or retweaking the original elements. Okay.
Cool.
Make it look luxurious, okay? Take care.
Excited to show you what I come up with.
I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Okay, Connor, you're up last, but you're definitely not least.
Okay, Chris. So, to give you some bird's eye view context, I've picked an airline called Jet2. Jet2 is a budget airline in the UK. Most of the big airlines in the UK are budget airlines. Let me pull up some of their branding so you can see. These are a collection of images, very clean, very simple, bright red, bright white, wasn't seemingly done in a heavy-handed way or anything like that. And I also found the guy who did the original design for it. So this guy, John Dean, this is just context for you, created the design using Helvetica. It's over 10 years old at this point, but it was done fairly quickly to get their lines up and running and going. Now, I was going to reach out to this guy, but I can't find him. He seems to have just disappeared after this project. His agency's gone and all that type of stuff. So, based on the information I've got here, I know what typeset it's in. I know the direction that they were taking the project in overall. So I started to take these images and think about, okay, well, we're talking about a budget airline here. We're not going to go 10 steps above. We're not going to go Etihad or Emirates type first class, because that's just too far. So I was thinking, well, rather than going super posh, super fancy, we're going to take it up a couple of notches. So you might call it premium. I started looking at what a luxury airline looks like. So we're getting a lot of space in the photography here, a lot of golds, browns, and I think that was just too far. So the initial direction I looked at was this kind of excessively rich and luxurious setting that I just didn't think reflected the Jet2 mission statement, almost, the ethos. So I then went and created a board that reflected all of the different branding items that we would need. Now, on this board, it's a bit of a mixture, but the general theme here is that there's quite a lot of more vintage Pan Am, 60s, 70s design work that was clean, it's big, it's bold, it's not brash and excessive, it just feels high-end, which was the approach I wanted to take this whole project. So the Pan Am designs, the tags, there's some packaging in here that I looked at for potentially for amenity bags, the signage. The Jet2 format seemed to kind of go that way really cleanly, really nicely, to not skew them so far away from where they originally are. As one of the things you said, that it needed to fit within the ecosystem they already had. So by using these kind of more vintage designs, I'll be taking this inspiration forward to the overall branding and layout and things like that. So I've decided to go with the metal pin, the luggage tag, and the cabin menu. The direction here is to go 1 or 2 steps higher than their kind of standard class. So you get a better experience, better food, you get a better presentation when you get onto the flight. So what do you think about that approach at the moment, rather than going too hard kind of towards that richer end? Does it feel a bit more right to kind of just go 1 or 2 steps rather than going jump the whole gun?
It does relative to the brand, because we have something similar here in the United States called Southwest Airlines, and they're fun and they're quirky, and they don't really have classes per se. I think you can get preferred seating, like you can get on the plane earlier, but it's not really crazy. So this is one of those weird ones where you're trying to move a more discount brand to being an upscale brand. So there's only so far you can push it, and in the real world, this might not even work. So who knows? It's like Scion trying to become Lexus. It's an uphill battle, but it can work, and we've seen it. So I think your instincts are right. It's nice to refer to vintage and retro design, and I think that's a viable direction. I would caution you, because I don't know where you're going to go with this, is not to refer to other airline branding. Like if you found a vintage hotel or vintage clothing company and looked at their usage of design and then borrowed that, at least it's not going to become derivative, right? Because you don't want to rehash another airline's legacy. It will feel inauthentic. Okay, keep going.
Yes, I understand. Okay, so an important image to refer to in this scenario when we're talking about the name is this one. Jet2 uses a variety of different sections. So they have Jet2 holidays, they have Jet2 villas, they have Jet2 careers. So Jet2 is kind of their basis name, and then everything else comes out from is built out from the side of that as well. So when it came to naming the brand overall, or this section of the airline, what we've gone in for is firstly starting off with rebuilding the logo design itself. What you can see on screen is the logo itself at the moment, me trying to typeset it in Helvetica and build out an original copy, because can't get a vector version of this online, it just doesn't exist. So the plane icon that is built into the J of Jet2 was the first thing that I thought, well, that needed to be changed, because although it works amazingly well on big format on a plane, it's on a plane, so you already know it's a plane, and it just felt redundant in that regard. And then when you shrank it all the way down, it was lost. And I don't know whether that's an oversight or something that they just keep because that's what they've always had, but it didn't feel like it was appropriate for the version I was going to head into. So this is pretty relaxed in terms of getting this typesetting going, but I started to build out names like Jet2 Luxury, Jet2 Stars, Jet2 VIP, Jet2, what was another one? Luxurious, Premium, Premier. I've ended up taking and building on this idea of Jet2 VIP. Jet2 VIP, it was short, it's sweet, it's sharp. This potentially could go on a section of a plane to show that that section's the VIP section to promote it. So I wanted to keep it shorter rather than going Jet2 Luxury or Premier where we're adding like 8 or 10 characters onto the end. Does that thought process follow along with where you think this could have gone?
Yes, I have some thoughts here. Usually VIP, because it's an acronym, it's usually in all caps. I understand why you did it, because it's easy to read like this.
Yep.
But usually, like, you don't use FBI or CIA in lowercase because it's an acronym, because it stands for very important person. I might have suggested, and maybe it's not too late, for you to do Jet 2X, like twice as good. You know, just keep it super short. The letter X is pretty cool to work with, and I think it can open up some options for you, but that would be my suggestion at this point. But I like your thinking. Okay. Keep it short. Okay. It's an addendum. Yeah. I get it.
So the next step was to look at the color palette. So the color palette at the moment is red, white, and gray across all of their branding. So to take the next step approach, rather than going for gold and silver and platinum and these types of typical luxury color, I began by inverting the color palette. So that just gave us a standard stock blue, which is not this one on screen, but that was the basis. So from there, I built it out to be a similar size system. We're going for kind of 3 main colors. There is a secondary gray in there as well. This was the more final lockup that I was going to go for with the Jet2 VIP section, and following their tradition of keeping the gradients across the type. Although it's maybe not something I would do if it was my brand from start to finish, I think it works well for this application. And I've removed the plane from the J because, as I said, it felt redundant. What are your thoughts at this point? Do you think this is an appropriate direction?
Well, I have to also think that usually these luxury lines, or premier class, first class, whatever you want to call it, it's a sub-brand, so it lives with the parent brand. How does Jet2 VIP in this color palette work with Jet2's overall branding because it's still the plane that's branded a certain way. Go to the top of your screen and just copy the logo from that one and bring it right next to it. Okay, so that's what you need to kind of consider,
size.
okay? Like Jet2 presents its new premier class called Jet2 VIP.
Yeah.
So now I
okay.
can see that the colors, because they're so contrasty, it's vibrating a little bit. So you're
It
going to
is
think
very
about
slightly
that.
around those edges, isn't it? If
Yeah,
it was,
it is. You can see that.
If it was very slightly not, well, if it was not the gradient, that would probably help it.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe maybe the saturation or the hue, you can work that part out. That's what I'm talking about. So it will work alone and it works together, and then you're good. And the other thing too is that you've added Helvetica in oblique, and some of the rounded corners exist in this Jet2 logo, but they don't exist in your VIP. Did you want to make them feel like they're part of it or no? What's the idea there?
The thought process was to tidy up what I think wasn't aesthetically pleasing in the typeface itself, whilst I understand the design was made with the intention for being kind of set by itself. As you quite rightly have said, the 2 here has a little flick on the tail, which I've removed. The T is also, the baseline of that T is completely flattened out, whereas on my one I've left it curved. Again, it's legibility and just the readability of the type. It doesn't feel... I've also given it a bit more breathing room overall in terms of the kerning between the letters.
So I have a thought for you. Perhaps you can explore this now or later, which is to do the word jet as just Helvetica oblique without any of the flourishes, but make the 2 exactly the same 2. So there's some DNA between the 2.
Yep.
And I think it would look nicer to bookend or to bracket your design. So the jet is the modern sharp and the VIP is sharp, but then the 2 is just a nod back to the original brand. So that's the way we evolve it, you know? And, but then I would put the flick back on the 2 because otherwise it's just a little thing. Think about how you can tie the 2 colors together maybe. I'm curious where you're taking this because you mentioned all this retro stuff. I'm curious to see where you take it.
Yeah, as I said, I'm working on the pin, the luggage tags, and the menu at the moment.
Did you create a stylescape for us to look at?
I've only created those mood boards to build out.
When you create a mood board, that helps you understand the design and the visual language. One of the things that some of the guys who had done this, they started to profile the user, to look at their world, and they would broaden their mood board to include many things way outside of airlines. Because like I said, there's a danger of referencing airlines because it's going to feel like Me Too kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to go look at packaging and design as you have in some of your mood boards from things that are totally not relevant to this at all. I will look at icons and illustration styles that feel like it's going to work because we're taking it from where it is theoretically to where we want it to be. And it helps to kind of see that before we do all the design work. I would also encourage you to try to figure out what the brand elements and components are. Because right now, honestly, if I'm just looking at this, and our audience is going to say the same thing, it's like, Connor, this is just Helvetica oblique. Like, what are the other components? Like, how do you expand on that? How does this become a pattern? How does this become illustrations or whatever? So you have your work cut out for you, man. So I would encourage you to try to figure that out sooner than later so you can say that definitively these 3 components, this color, this typeface, these patterns, or this style, or this icon really define the brand. Okay?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's great.
All right.
You'll see if people really change, given the feedback, you'll know how they process things. And you'll know also the people who, it's just like last time you showed it. So this is how school works. This is how real life professionals do it. You show work, your manager, your creative director, whoever it is, will give you input, and then your ability to incorporate that and to take it to the next level, your attitude about it really determines how far you'll go. Okay.
So I think that speaks directly about mindset and just how we approach, like you said, it's a personality thing.
The output, the way you present, the way you speak, how you carry yourself, it's a mirror to your soul. And I can see that. It's not something that's mysterious to me. I speak unspoken design language. I understand what you're saying in what you produce for me. The other thing I'm noticing as a broader statement to all the designers who have worked so far is they are so young that this is stretching them in all kinds of ways. This is a really big assignment for a seasoned designer.
So some of them are self-taught, some of them have gone to school or barely even went through school. So a lot of them wanted to rebrand the whole airline. So they're missing that point. They still don't understand what it means to create complementary brands or products, right? And this is what designers do. They're like, we know better. We'll just do it all over again. We'll start from scratch. And they miss the whole point. People don't hire you to do that. They hire you to figure out a creative solution that fits within a fairly tight space, but brings some creativity and energy and fresh thinking to that. That's the real challenge, because everybody can hit the nuclear button.